All right, hey folks, I'm Kat. I'm coming to Peters Valley from Biddeford, Maine, which is the southern part of the state. I am a metalsmith and a jewelry designer, and I specialize in two techniques, sand casting and sailor knotting. And the work that I've done during this residency is tangential to both of those techniques, but decidedly different in some ways. This has been a very technical experience for me. I came into it with two specific goals. One was to refamiliarize myself with the technical parts of the lost wax casting process, which is a process that I use a lot in my work, but that I contract out. So I haven't done this myself in about 8 years, but I have a lot of the equipment. So I'd like to have the capability to do it in my own studio if a situation calls for it. And then the other thing I wanted to work on is I was gifted a pair of these old industrial maple braiding machines from a friend. He found them dumpster diving outside of a factory over in Providence. When I received them, neither of them was in working order. And so I hope to get at least one of them fully functional before leaving on Monday. This process is very similar. It's a modern evolution of kumihimo braiding, which is a Japanese technique. Similar techniques have been developed by different cultures around the world, but most predominantly used in Japan, automated, I think, in England, at least that's where the patent's held, into the maypole process. But it's a process that I do by hand already, and I'm interested in potentially automating certain braids, again, where situationally appropriate. I'm not going to show a lot of my finished work because of the nature of this residency for me. I haven't been making work per se, but just to give you an idea of what I actually make when I'm at home, this is my signature pieces. So the clasp on there is lost wax cast. It's an alloy called shibuichi, a mix of copper and fine silver. Hand carved the master for that, work with a casting house that's based in Rhode Island to cast them, and then I do all the finish work in-house. And the cord on there is a hand-braided polyester. I make that cordage using that loom you saw earlier, and the ends of the cord are spliced together. So that's a bracelet. So as I move through slides, it's kind of be like a, what do you call it? Like a stop motion. I'm not going to talk for most of these because there's a lot of them. So I'm just going to move through pretty quick here. But I'll make a note every now and then. Taking a lot of these pictures so that I can keep track of where things go back onto the machine when it comes time to reassemble. These are partially to show off how much fun I'm having, but also very functional. Just put this one in here in particular to show just how grimy these things were when I received them. The sawdust is from hanging out in my shop for the last 2 years, but the grease that's underneath it is au naturel. That's straight from the source. So this is a funny moment. I knew this isn't not how I was supposed to disassemble these many elements. There's like 20 different pieces there, but I couldn't figure out how to take them apart. We'll come back to that later. So I had to take them off all at once, which was very inefficient, but it got me where I needed to be. So as you can see, I'm switching back and forth between these processes. Most days I've done a little bit of both. This is the one truly failed casting I've had so far. In the first round, I had some investment that didn't set up properly because it was too wet. Taking a lot of notes as I go through this, particularly with the casting part, trying to get a process that works. And this is one that I was not surprised failed. So it was kind of gratifying almost to be like, ah, gotcha. Yeah, so all that grease is mixed in with fiber particulate. This is one of those cams that drives the shuttles. And this is what it looks like when the grease has been scraped off. Just cycle back real quick there. I estimate I picked a solid pound of grease out of just the cams. That's half of the grease that came out of the cams. That was a fun day. Machine coming back together. And run in chunky, but this gives you an idea of how this thing actually works. There's no thread on there at this point. Camera's moving in and out because I'm hand cranking that thing from the top. Yeah, this is probably around 9 o'clock at night in the studio. Excellent button. And getting ready for the walk home. Disassembling the clutch on machine number 1. Again, taking those pictures so that I know where things are supposed to go. And this was a lovely moment when I finally got enough grease off there to realize that that was a separate piece of material and how those shuttles are supposed to be removed. Small game changer. Clutch again. And moving on to the second machine, figuring out what I'm working with this one before getting too much further into progress on either of them. This one moved a lot faster because I had a better idea of what to expect. This is where the cam's partially cleaned up on this machine. They're not nearly as sexy as the cast iron cams that came off the other machine, but they do run a lot smoother. I made the hard decision to proceed with this machine after this step here, which didn't work. I attempted to swap the guide plates from the first machine to the second machine. The original guide plates, or machine 1 guide plates, were higher quality manufacture, but showed more wear. But higher quality manufacture is very attractive. So I was hoping that they'd be cross-compatible, but the tolerances were, well, not friendly in my favor. So sticking with that original plate that came off there. So I know how to put these things back together. This is a nice solid day of cleaning those bad areas. 16 of them. Me talking to myself. Oh, the bee's starting to go on a little bit. If you're paying attention, you'll probably notice almost all of these castings are like the same pieces. Again, I'm not trying to make artwork here. I'm trying to dial in this process. That's my goal is moving through this. This is one where there was some weird coloration around where the metal was going to enter. I took note of that in case there was an issue with the casting, so that I'd have an idea of like, oh, there was something weird about that one. Look out for it next time. Melting the excess flux out of the crucible. I've been trying to walk back and forth from the studio as much as possible, and that's been a really nice practice the last week. This is last night, coming up on the present here. Again, same basic models each time. The castings that I ran last night was testing out various ways of debubbleizing the surface, none of which were particularly effective, which is discouraging, but it's information. I can use it. So this is really breaking down this one, getting it cleaned up, ready to reassemble, so that hopefully before I leave on Monday, I can start running some fiber through these things and playing with the actual braiding part of the process, which is where it gets real fun. And this is this morning, a couple days ago, my little friends that came with me, purple one started to bloom. Well, I got another moment on the mic. Just want to say a lot of hurt in the world. Really, really, really grateful to be in this peaceful place. I encourage you all to say no to war, to say no to apartheid, to say no to genocide, to stand up for human rights. And as creative people, I believe that we have a responsibility to, at the very least, imagine what a better world might look like. If you want to see more of the actual art that I make, my website's catbates.com. That QR code will get you there. And yeah, I encourage you to sign up for my newsletter if you're into stuff like that, or follow me on social media. I will be sharing the next few days worth of this experience on there for sure. Thank you.